Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Wild West Tennis Podcast, brought to you by QualityShot Tennis. I'm giggling because this guy Phil from Tweener Head Tennis, great guy. We just met, but he's a barrel of laughs, and he came highly recommended from one of my early on guests, Charlie Fox. Phil's been around the game since he was a junior. He played a lot of junior tournaments, had some decent results as a junior ITF player. We'll let him, fill out his resume as a player. But he is the guy that he's the tennis guy. He does everything. He does all the stuff. He probably string your racket, give you tips. He's a good player. He does all the media stuff. Whew, Phil, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. That's a perfect introduction. I kind of do a little bit of everything. I've been a hitting partner for Rublev, Kyrgios, Pegula. I've interviewed a handful of players. I've gotten to do reviews on different products. I've got to interview some of the best players around the world. And I'm grateful just to have you guys along and be a part of this experience with you guys, because it's not every day that I get to be the guest on someone's show. I'm kind of doing what Brad is doing right now in terms of hosting. So it's good to be on the other side of things and kind of express my opinions.
I'm so glad you're on the other side, because I tell you, I'm worn out, and it is helpful because you have had these interactions a lot more recently than myself. I got back on the circuit in 2022 after basically a 5-year hiatus. So enough about me. Let's get into your knowledge. And you mentioned that you've been a hitting partner with some of these players. I like to start off with the American men players, and essentially your take on. They had a really good Australian Open. It's hard to, aside, Taylor Fritz probably was one that may have been a little disappointing, but for you, maybe take us through when you were watching this in the early rounds, who really got you stoked when you saw them playing well?
Well, that's a big question, because it's not every day that we finally get to talk about multiple Americans at the same time,
especially in a slam.
Exactly. And it's funny, I saw a tweet the other day that said we could possibly at one slam this year, we could have 20 Americans in the main draw that are in the top 100, which is obscene, because we'll have one guy that's in the top 10, we'll have guys that are in the top 25, we'll have guys that are in the top 50, top 100, top 150, and we're going to have a lot of them seeing in the main draw experience, which is not always the case. So for me, looking at the Americans that did really, really well, because one guy that I have to shout out is Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul, for me, making it to his first Grand Slam semifinal, he was actually one of the first I was a hitting partner for him, and I actually got to meet him and talk to him and get to know him as one of the top guys when he won a challenger in New Haven, Connecticut. I got to be his hitting partner before his final match, and he won that tournament, and I couldn't be happier. I posted about it on my personal Instagram, but if you want to follow me on my Tweener Head Tennis Instagram, that would be a better option for you guys if you want to get to know more. Go ahead.
I just want to see your portion of the check.
My portion of the check? No, I wasn't getting any of that check. I was there for moral support.
No, I know you played a significant role. I couldn't help myself.
That's okay. I like that, because Tommy, and getting to know him and getting to know his game, it's really nice to see him come around to be one of the top Americans. And it's definitely well deserved, because it's not just him. We have to talk about other players like Korda, that had an unbelievable run. Unfortunate to see him kind of retire against Khachanov. I believe it was in the quarterfinals.
It was.
It was the quarterfinals, because that was going to be the all semifinal matchup for Americans. And Korda had an unbelievable run. Talking about a guy that at the beginning, when I first saw him, I believe I saw him for the first time in 2020 at the RBC ATP Challenger, and he was playing with Chris Eubanks at the time. And I remember seeing
help some of us out because we have some non-American listeners. I hope. Where does that take place? That Challenger.
That Challenger, which has now been upgraded to an ATP 250 event in Dallas. It was
cool.
It was in Dallas, Texas, in 2020. RBC Bank was the title sponsor of that event. It was a pretty big event. It was with Tiafoe, Korda, Eubanks, all these top American players.
And you said that was 2020, Phil? Or around that time? Maybe
March,
before the pandemic?
March 2020. It was right before.
Yeah, in there. Right before Indian Wells.
It was either late February, beginning of March. It was right before the Indian Wells.
Yeah.
And
you got it right in there.
That tournament was right before Indian Wells, and that was when Yuri Rodionov won that tournament in Austria, and I believe he beat Kudla in the final. But that was a tournament where I saw Korda for the first time. Tall, lanky kid. I didn't really know who his father was because
Phil, how old are you?
I'm 27.
That's why. Hey guys, his dad won the Australian Open in 1998.
Yeah.
Phil was like basically at that time was, I don't know, 4, 3.
I was 3.
Yeah. So don't hold that against him.
People. Someone mentioned that to me too, and kind of going off a tangent too.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
No, it's fine. It's carbon dating me to an earlier degree, and it was funny because someone else mentioned a WTA player that I had no idea who it was, but it was a top 10 player, and I completely forget their name. So shout out to tennis writer David Kane for calling me out on that one.
Sure,
but. When
Tennis.com writer.
Tennis.com writer, really good at it too. Been doing it for a while. Going back to Peter Korda, I didn't know who the kid was. Just tall, lanky kid, had a bit of a temper during practice, but
you're not talking about Peter Korda because that would have been like your mom's day. You mean
no. Kid. But Seb the kid, when he was practicing, he was still practicing. He was practicing with Eubanks, and he reminded me of Eubanks because of their stature. But after seeing what Korda did and kind of looking back at it, I wish I took time out of my day to talk to him because, and I'll be honest, I didn't think he was that special at the time because watching him practice wasn't the most special practice I've seen. But it shows you the perspective of how much work they put into it. Korda beefed up a little bit. Korda took to the next level and has been producing for a very long time. So I was disappointed to see him retire against Khachanov because he was probably one of the best players playing at the Australian Open this year. And again, for those that are newer to tennis, his dad being I believe a 2-time Grand Slam champion, Australian Open and French, right?
I'm just going to stick with the one. And because he may have gotten to a Roland Garros final for sure. He won the Australian Open in 98. And I think he beat Rios, which was kind of a shock to me. Now I could be wrong on who he beat in 98. If he won the French...
Runner-up at French. He won 1998, runner-up at the French in 92, but was number 2 in the world in 1998.
Yeah, so that's where... I do the same thing. You knew he was in the final of the French. You were only like 3 when he wins the Australian Open. And I could be wrong. I thought he beat Rios. So, but that's all right, guys. That's why we have guys like Steve Flink on here normally instead of... people like us, I mean, I'm only 20.
That's you're my age, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I borrowed your ID once, so
really,
you might
shocking.
I can't grow a full mustache, just the beard.
I can only grow a mustache. If I grow a beard, it's gonna be terrible.
Well, you're lucky. You're lucky in the month of October. But no, folks, to get back on track, you're right. He was that kind of. His father was that kind of player. He was lanky like Seb, and maybe a late bloomer. But you said he had that French Open final earlier, won the Australian later. You misread Seb on the first glance. I do that all the time. I do that constantly.
I'm pissed because
you shouldn't be pissed. When I saw JJ Wolf play on TV against Stefanos in last year in Acapulco. I think it was like the second round because I think.
I remember that. That was a huge match.
Yeah, he got crushed. And I thought, gosh, I like this kid. He went to Ohio State University, but I didn't think he was going to be an Australian Open quarterfinalist the next year.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So my point is, I always have that happen. I don't know what I'm doing, what I'm seeing. So you shouldn't feel bad. These guys are asking you to be their hitting partner. That's a win.
Is that a dig on me or a dig on them?
Dig on them.
That,
dig on them. Their fault. Come on.
It's
What's
it's
wrong
one of
with
those
these guys? It's not a dig on you, because look what they've done since you had that experience and exposure to them. It's on these guys.
It's just funny to say that, because I feel like with some of these guys, and it's funny that you mentioned Wolf. I interviewed him in 2019 when he was still at Ohio State, and he got a wild card into the ATP Cleveland Challenger.
Okay.
And again, I always relate to Twitter, because some people post the greatest stuff on Twitter. It's a double-edged sword. You find great content, and then you want to bury yourself in a hole after you see something else on Twitter on that little bird app. So it was funny, because if you looked at the Challenger draw in 2019 when Wolf participated, Eubanks participated, Mo participated, you look at that draw and you tell me how many of those guys that were ranked outside the top 300 are now in the 150 or better. It's remarkable. And JJ Wolf is one of them. He was a freshman or sophomore at Ohio State, and I interviewed him, and that was somehow my best or most listened to interview on YouTube when I first started my channel. So you never know what you're going to get with some of these guys. And that and I'll let you take the reins, because the next guy I wanted to talk about was Ben Shelton.
No, you go ahead and take the reins on all this stuff, because it's easy for me to sit back and bust your chops. I wasn't out there putting in the hard yards like you were. And I mean that. I remember there was a great challenger tournament in Calabasas. I would stumble in on those, and I think, oh, this guy's got no chance. And the next thing you know, he's in the top 20. And I'm like, boy, I'm not a scout. I don't know what I'm doing. I should just I don't know. It's embarrassing. It's hard to know. So no, God, I commend you for sticking with it. And your timing's good, because they'll remember you. They'll probably like the fact that you were at the challenger levels and futures and took the time to care. And then when they see you at 250s or 500s or majors, they'll be like, oh, Phil. Yeah, he was on top of this. That's me being serious. That's
Thank
important.
You. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and they do too. And your timing is great with how they've done. You talked about Mo, didn't he? God, he had a great win early in the tournament.
He beat Zverev.
Yeah,
second round.
Yeah,
lucky loser. So for those,
tell us about that.
So Michael Mo, one of the nicest guys on tour, I have to say. For him to go from packing up his stuff and almost leaving for the airport to being called to say he was next on court for the Australian Open is a story that's not talked about enough, because that guy was on his way out. And for those of you, and I'll stick with Brad's theme here, if you are new to tennis, if you are listening to this for the first time, a lucky loser is essentially a person that didn't get into main draw, wasn't qualifying and won a round, but didn't qualify for the main draw. They stick around because someone in the main draw, if they withdraw at any point before their first match, they will get an alternate or lucky loser player to jump in and play, so that way they have the opportunity to play the main draw event. So Michael Mo was at the event still. He packed up all his stuff, got the call, showed up to the tournament, won his first round, beat Zverev in the second round. Granted, Zverev's coming back from an ankle injury that he suffered at the Roland Garros. For those of you who haven't seen it, highly recommend you do not watch that video of him turning his ankle, because I saw that live. Terrifying.
That was against
terrifying.
Rafa, I think in the fourth round at Roland Garros.
Quarterfinals or semifinals.
You're right. My bad. See, look at that. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, you're fine.
Mundo. I think it was quarters. And he had him. He had him like he lost the first set.
If he didn't roll his ankle, I think Zverev had a decent chance of beating Rafa because that was going the distance. Zverev was actually playing some of his best tennis. And
you're right. It was further along than I remembered. And let's say he doesn't beat him. Still, Rafa might have been more compromised.
Yes.
Getting out of that in essentially 2 sets. They weren't complete, but the amount of time on court, the humidity, that was unlucky for Zverev.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I don't want to get off on that. We're talking about Michael Mmoh beating Zverev at the Australian Open this year in the second round after getting the lucky loser. So he made good. I mean, he made good on winning his first round match, taking out a former top 5 player, a Grand Slam finalist, one of the guys that, I think he won a year-end championship. He's no joke. Yeah. Even though, like you said, he's coming back from injury. Then Mmoh, I think he faced another. God, was it an American after Zverev?
It was the next round that giving Mmoh his timeline and giving his perspective. He went 2 sets down and had a 3-set victory in his first round against a qualifier. Then he lost the first set to Zverev, beat Zverev in 4. And then he came off against the guy we just talked about, JJ Wolf. Lost to him in 3 sets. But the fact that Mmoh had the ability to win his first round in 5, be a former top 5 player, and then at least get to the third round where you're making over $100,000 at a Grand Slam, it's huge because when you go deep in a Grand Slam, even making the first round, you make about $80,000, which is still more than someone's entire salary in a year. That's why it's so vital to play these majors.
Hit that mark. So
to be honest, neither have I. Brad, you're fine. Honestly, if I could see $80,000 in my account today, I would think I'm rich. But in reality, I have to pay more bills than I have to. So
join the club, right? And those guys do too. I mean, right. So he's like, oh crap. He's losing money going to Australia potentially, and then beep and
exactly. But that's the reality of tennis. It can change like that. You can change on a dime, and for Mmoh to kind of have that storyline, and for a guy we've interviewed as well, and we interviewed him at Indian Wells, for a guy that just got engaged, for a guy that has his life going in that upward direction. I thought he's reached the top 100 and he has the potential to be top 100 consistently. He's currently partnered with Zach, who is Tiafoe's former coach. So he's on the right path to possibly be consistently in the top 100, making main draws. So it's going to be good to see him there.
I'm glad you mentioned that about Tiafoe, because I remember seeing a tweet. Didn't Tiafoe was giving him encouragement before Zverev, right? Like, go for it, dude. Like, you got this.
Yeah, and for him to have that confidence too is something that he really needed, because Mmoh he wasn't having the best year last year, at least in my opinion, and we didn't see his full potential. So it's great to see what he's got. So I'm excited to see what he has left in his tank in 2023, because this is only the beginning for the American.
It sounds to me like, Phil, if I understand the economics of it, just by that circumstance of, we don't know who was next in line, because as you kind of, that's another podcast in and of itself. Lucky losers, wild cards, special exemptions, blah blah blah.
Exactly.
The fact is, the bags are packed. But he's looking at his phone like more than a guy that just got dumped. Like, he's just that phone that's his lifeline.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh God, come on, call me, dude. And he's probably calling the tournament, and they're like, we don't know yet. It's literally, and he's got a flight, and he's like on pins and needles. He's in the lounge of whatever hotel, and he's about ready to go to the airport, and then it's like whatever his ringtone is, and he knows.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, he's walking away with 80 G's.
Exactly. And looking up at the total amount, and I have to say this because it's astonishing. It's so important for guys that are in the top 250 or even 300s. If you just make qualifying of the first round of an Australian Open, you have to realize that that's still more than winning an entire challenger event. So a lot of these guys, that are making.
So wait, back that up just so because I'm you're blowing my mind. Phil, are you saying that if you win a first round match in the qualies of a major, that could be more or equal to winning a challenger? Or did I miss that?
So to put it into perspective, a challenger level is, to kind of break it down quickly, you have ITF level, which is International Tennis Federation, which is lower level tournaments.
Sure.
And when you hear someone say 25K, 15K, 50K tournament, that just represents the total amount of purse that the
not the winner's
has.
check.
Not the winner's check. The total amount for every player in the tournament, whether you lose first round or win the tournament. That's your You're getting a cut of that 50K.
Okay.
Challenger tournaments, now they have a new range with their system, but I'm not going to get into that. But with their system, you have 75K level tournaments, which is the total amount of purse. So some of these guys that win challenger level tournaments are making between 10 to 18, 20K. You're guaranteed, if you make the first round of qualifying, if you made it at the Australian Open this year, you're making over $17,000 before tax.
Beautiful. You're clearing that just by losing in the first round of qualies.
Guaranteed money. And then if just making the first round of the Australian Open in 2023, you're making $71,000. Mo making the round 3, he made guaranteed $153,000.
Yep. And that's, as you said, before taxes. And then essentially with the ranking points, nothing, I'm guessing, to defend. So he's just going to go up. If that alone, Phil, got him into the French.
Yep.
If his ranking was 104, whatever the cutoff is, go ahead, go over there, lose first round. It's still worth it. Now, I don't want to jinx the guy, but the economics of the sport are really interesting, are they not?
The economics of the sport, and you'll hear this, and this is a common theme that I like to talk about with a lot of pros that I interview, or a lot of college players that are on tour at the same time as playing collegiate level tennis. The economics of tennis are so hard, and it's a common theme with everyone too, because it becomes a fact that you have to put money into your spending, and you have to put money back into your livelihood. And it's like saying, I have to use my savings in order to put savings back into my account. So guys that are making this much money are putting away at least $30,000 for logistics in terms of travel. And that's not even before coaching. That's not even before. When you start making more money, you start having more and more players have coaches, and people travel with them, because a lot of these guys that travel to challengers and ITF level tournaments, the lower level tournaments, they're traveling by themselves, or they split fares with other players for hotels.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is wild. I mean, it's so great, and I love talking about this, but gosh, I hope you come back, because I've loved talking about Michael Mo, and we got JJ Wolf in there. And you mentioned that, look, let's get it back to what Mo did by beating Zverev. And you indicated, sure, he's coming back from injury. And then Michael Mo lost to Wolf next. Yeah. But let's look at that. I don't know what section of the draw, but these American dudes, unfortunately, were a bit heavy in one section. You know, meaning that getting the quarterfinal with between God, I'm having a brain cramp.
No, it's okay.
Tommy Paul and Shelton. Sorry, that's unfortunate. You know, that's a good problem to have. You know, two Americans facing off in the quarters. So it led me to believe that section of the draw was pretty American heavy. But to get back to the other guys, JJ and it was Paul. Didn't they have an epic match just for Paul to get to the quarters? Or was it Shelton? It was Shelton that beat him.
Shelton beat Wolf.
Yeah.
And looking back at the draw, looking at everyone that was on this side. So in the third round, and I'm going to put big picture here for everyone. We had
Please.
Mackenzie McDonald. We had Francis Tiafoe.
Yeah.
We had Sebastian Corda. We had, I'm just scrolling through because I can't think of it off the top of my head, Ben Shelton, JJ Wolf, Tommy Paul, and Jensen Brooksby. So we had seven Americans in the third round, 4 of which faced off against each other. So you had Tommy Paul take on Jensen Brooksby, and then you had JJ Wolf taking on Michael Moe. Actually, let me rephrase that. 8.
Please.
8 American players playing in the third round. And then you had Ben Shelton play against JJ Wolf in an epic 4th round match. You had Tommy Paul that swept the floor with Brooksby and then beat Batista Agut in 4 sets.
Yeah.
And then on the other half, you still had Sebastian Corda, who beat Hurkacz in that 4th round match, and then played Khachanov. So it's amazing to see the depth that Americans had going into this tournament.
Yeah, and Tiafoe was put himself in a winning position against Khachanov. Did he not?
To an extent, I think he did. I think, to be honest, I would have favored Tiafoe in this matchup, just because of seeing his recent momentum.
Yeah, on the ascendancy, sure.
And going from recency bias, we'll go with that answer.
Well, that's what this podcast is about, America's, but right.
No, it's true though, because he came into it. He won the 3rd set, forcing a 4th against Khachanov. And you would think with the momentum and with the crowd and with kind of his rise to stardom as of late, he has that potential. But we have to remember Khachanov won the Paris Masters 1000 tournament. Khachanov is not the first, has been in this position before.
Yep.
Even though, and I don't know if we should talk about it, but the fact that he's Russian as well is another topic that's pretty sensitive right now. But that's another day.
We can stick to the American players, but we can where we can bring up Khachanov is U.S. Open semifinal.
Yeah,
because we like to talk about the Americas, North, South, Central, and so therefore bringing up Khachanov as his great U.S. Open run, as Tiafoe himself, had that epic against 5-setter against Alcaraz, right?
Who did, Tiafoe?
Yeah, didn't he lose to Alcaraz in 5 sets?
I have to look that up. I can't think
it could have been. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a quarterfinal, but it doesn't matter. I wouldn't want to be put on the spot either. But the point is, bringing up Khachanov is relevant to me because he had that great U.S. Open run. I think he beat Nick Kyrgios in the quarters, got to the semis, and I forgot who he fell to. And that's, if it's not an American player, it's fine. But Khachanov is relevant because of the fact he had that U.S. Open semi and then backed it up in Australia, in the semi, losing to Tsitsipas in 4 sets. So it's okay to bring him up, but I'd like to take us back to, like, as you mentioned, that section with Tiafoe, Brooksby. Well, actually, Tiafoe and Fritz, I think, might have been in a different section.
Yeah, because Fritz was higher ranked, and he had the seeding in favor of him.
Yeah, and he runs into a red-hot Aussie guy. I mean, that's just...
Popyrin was so good this tournament.
Yeah.
And I hate to kind of go away from the Americas, but the fact that...
That's all right. He took out an American.
Popyrin, to me, was a guy that I always watched and rooted for because I thought he was going to be one of the best Aussies or one of the next Aussies up. And then he gets a wild card in this tournament and actually blows people's minds by making it far into the tournament. So I was actually happy for him to see him go far. Wasn't happy for Fritz after what Fritz has been posting as of late. But good for him. Good for Alexei. I like his game. I like the way he plays. And can't wait to see what he does in 2023. Yeah,
no, and he is the sort of Mr. Australia. And it's like, it happens in the U.S., especially if you get the wild card in your home slam, you have the momentum of the fans. It wasn't a bad performance by Fritz. It just, he gets a bit unlucky, like his losing the first round to Tracy Austin's son at the Open.
Brandon Holt.
Yeah, he just gets a bit unlucky with that sort of thing. Like, they're similar,
Yeah.
Like, he's better than both those guys on paper. And it's just like, wow, first round again. That's fluky.
Yeah.
But gosh, I'm glad we talked about these guys. And it was so fun with seeing Shelton. Did you, he was a college player. Did do you cover like college tennis enough to have seen him as a college player?
It's funny you mentioned that, because on our channel right now, last year we started it for the first time. This year we're doing a college tennis tour. So we've already, at the end of last year, we went to Southern Methodist University, SMU, where the Dallas Open is being held.
Beautiful.
It's February now. Last month we went to North Carolina State. We got to see their top 25 program. Wolfpack, another guy, Alexi Galarneau, a Canadian, going pro there. And in terms of college tennis, if you talk to any college coach or former college player, you knew Ben Shelton was going pro after winning those challengers over the summer and winning at the US Open. Every coach you talked to knew. And I even talked to the NC State coaches. Chris James, and shout out Chris James from NC State, the assistant coach. I asked him, did you think Shelton was going to have success? And he's like, absolutely. I think his ceiling's to the moon. His ceiling's to the moon. Yeah. And for a guy that won NCAA individuals, NCAA team, his dad being a former pro, his sister being on Florida Gators team, his US Open run last year, and going that epic 5-setter. I was there for that match. And let me tell you, the amount of people that caught Ben Shelton at one of the best moments of his career was phenomenal. I don't think you can find a more electric young player right now than Ben Shelton. And I was told about him last year by Gruskin from Cracked Rackets and from a couple other people. And listening to how they spoke about Shelton is remarkable. And for a guy that has a dad that was a former player, and actually he beat his dad's record of going farther into a Grand Slam than he did by his age, is phenomenal. So in the fact that was his first time leaving the United States to play tennis.
I know.
Like, you can't.
What's there not to love?
Exactly. Exactly. And for me, I thought he was just not gonna do well because he didn't play indoors. He wasn't playing in the United States. I didn't think his game was gonna be suited to those conditions. But from what people were saying and talking about the guy after he won NCAA individuals, I knew this kid was going to be special, and I learned how special he was this Australian Open. And I'm very happy to say the fact that he signed with Roger Federer's Team 8. He's with the same management team as
good.
Signed with them. I believe he's on
Tony
the same...
Godsick is one of my favorite agents.
And he as well, same with Coco Gauff. They both signed for the same team now.
Smart. Yeah.
Very smart. This kid's potential and his marketability, please correct me if I'm wrong with that word, but his ability to be marketed is another level than some of these other Americans.
The word, it's great. He's in tremendous hands with Tony. I would say nurturing, and Tony's a good guy. He's married to Mary Jo Fernandez, former player, commentator for ESPN, Rogers guy. Tony's a good dude. He's a good agent, and he has his track record. Yeah, it's nice to have Roger, but that he earned it. He's a nice guy. He's funny. He's got a good sense of humor. He cares, and I'm glad I think he was with IMG before.
He was,
but he's got a solid track record. I trust the guy, and I'm delighted for that pairing. That makes me feel good, warm and fuzzy.
And I wasn't going to go that personal, but
Well,
see,
he's a good dude.
he is.
Tony's
And
a great dude, and I don't know the kid, but Tony, I'm just saying.
Well, his son just committed to Stanford. Had a great run at the U.S. Open in doubles. I actually believe he won a first round as well. His son's going to Stanford. His wife's a former player. I personally think that what he's been doing with Coco Gauff is unbelievable. The way they've handled her is probably the best way I've seen agents handle players.
Exact. Good point, sir. Thank you.
It's the best way that you can handle players, especially when they have a good head on their shoulders, like Shelton, like Coco. And I'm not saying other players don't have good heads, but
you're right.
The mentality of bringing someone up in the right way into stardom and that fast, there are ways of teaching and growing a player, and I think they're doing that with Ben Shelton right now.
Phil, I really appreciate you saying that, because it's not the kind of thing that we traffic in often in a podcast like this. We're trying to go over the results, but honestly, we're not. Look, there's no reason for us to say this other than it's the truth.
Yeah.
Like she's been. Tony, like he's not good. He knows how to nurture the player. That's what I mean. He's a nice guy, and he's not desperate. He's got the experience. Coco's parents are omnipresent, and I've started eating that pasta. By the way.
Oh, you haven't eaten Barilla before?
I used to be a Chef Boyardee man.
Brad, you're better than that.
I was only Chef Boyardee.
No, but that's not pasta.
I don't know what it was, but
as a respecting Italian, I'm hurt. You just stabbed me in the heart and taste buds.
Oh boy, yeah. I need help.
You need a flavor palette, Brad. You need it badly.
I do. This nobody cares, but to me, salt is a spice. That's why I like that MSG Chef Boyardee raviolis and SpaghettiOs.
You couldn't see me there, but I was banging my head against the table.
Because you probably have some SpaghettiOs back there. You don't want us to see that you're like, scarfing it down. But
why, Brad? Why?
Because I need help. That's why I'm glad you're here. So she's in good hands with Godsick. Why not now get off the pasta talk and get into the women? And unfortunately, Coco Gauff had a Australian Open. Not bad.
I wouldn't say bad. I would say
okay.
I would say average.
Yeah.
I would say
for her standards. Yeah.
For her standards, and kind of, I'm not going to say
let it fly.
Her before her standards, before she gained this stardom. I mean, it's a lot of pressure being a top 10 seed at a Grand Slam. It's a lot of pressure. And to be honest, last year I thought Ostapenko was going to find her former self when she won the French Open, and Ostapenko had an unreal run.
I don't think you mean last year, right?
When did she win Dubai?
She won the French Open.
When did she win Dubai?
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's a French Open champion. I can't remember if she won Dubai last year, but you're right in that she is a Roland Garros champ. But last year, I think it was Iga that beat Coco in the finals at the French.
No, I'm going back because Ostapenko used to be.
You're right about her winning the French. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
You're I think explaining maybe a sort of a kind of comeback, because we hadn't heard much from her.
Yeah, exactly.
After she won French. Yeah, because I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, oh, where has she been? Like, wow.
And
so
she's
you
had
think
that.
she got momentum from good result in Dubai last year. That's kind of,
and towards the end of the year, she started showing promise of what she had, or her potential, and having that ability to play up again. And seeing it's funny to see Ostapenko do really, really well. It's fun to see her. Not funny. It's fun to see her do that.
No, actually, sometimes it is funny because she's.
No, it is. No, you're right. It's 100% funny because if you
but
see her on Twitter, if you see all the gifs that are made about Ostapenko and her reactions, and the fact that she doesn't trust automatic line calls, it's hysterical. It's absolutely hysterical.
She's a trip. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But
she's must-see TV.
Must-see tennis TV.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to golf as well,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I think it's a learning experience when you have more pressure on you. And she's probably developing some of the skills that she needs to develop to be a consistent top 10 player. And
Sure.
seeing her in that position as well, and seeing her be a great doubles player as well with
Yeah.
Jessica
Thank you.
Pegula. So it's good to see her developing those skills on a larger and broader scale that she's been doing, because she has won doubles titles. She has won singles titles. She's done a lot. She's done a lot as a before 20 years old player.
Yeah. I think I think she's still a teenager, Phil.
Exactly.
It feels like she's 21 or 20 because of all the achievements. You know, what she did at Wimbledon, beating Venus in 2019. You're thinking to yourself, yeah, I mean, for what she's done, she's probably 21, 22. Yeah. No, I think she's still
a
in
teenager.
her teens.
Yeah, she's still a teenager.
It's crazy. But I'm the same way. I'm like, what? No, because I remember in 19, and we just forget, is she sneaky good? Well, it's no secret. Well, you know what did surprise me, Phil, is that
what did?
Thank you. I like what did. I think she's only won, like, I believe 3 singles tournaments, maybe 4. Like, she won one before the Australian, maybe in a 250.
She won, to my recollection.
Mm-hmm.
Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Her
first title was in Linz.
Well, I can't go back that far. I mean,
I'm gonna try to.
Okay, yeah, I love it. Tennis Jeopardy.
Goff won Linz. She won Auckland. That was the one that she won before.
Right, the one before the Australian this year.
And I'm looking at her stats right now. She's only won 3 career singles titles.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
And she's
I think
18.
One's on clay, one's on hard, maybe 2 are on hard, and one is on clay.
Yeah.
I know.
So
isn't that weird?
I wouldn't say it's weird. I would just say it's more. The progression is faster than we anticipated, because after she had her run at Wimbledon, after she had her superstardom, her ESPN everything, when she exploded onto the scene, it was too fast. In my opinion, it was too fast. The way she came up. And I'll get a lot of crap for it, because I feel like I didn't believe the hype at first. And this is where we go back and we circle back to that conversation we had earlier during this podcast of, I didn't think she was gonna. I thought there was too much media attention on her.
I like the circle back, right? You see a guy for the first time, and you're like, "What's the hype?" Like with you, I think it was Corda. You were like, you didn't see it right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when I saw her play at Wimbledon, she beat Venus. Great.
Yep.
She beat Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Venus hasn't, and at that time, Venus was still on the decline of not playing the best tennis that we've seen her do or play.
Certainly at that tournament. Yeah.
Exactly. So when and I believe Coco made the 3rd round of Wimbledon of that year. But then she faded out. And then a year or 2 later, she recircles back to, I'm going to be the best player now as a teenager. I'm going to be getting the help that I need. I'm going to be developing the skills that are going to make me a top 10 player.
But also, Phil, her timing with the pandemic too.
Exactly. And it stopped all her momentum.
Yeah.
And that stopped all her momentum. And
might have been a good thing in her case. As weird as that sounds, because she was so young. You know what I mean?
I agree. And it showed too how much maturity she built and how much opportunity she had to build her game and to build up, because we already knew how hard she can hit. We just needed to see we just needed to see the technique that was going to prevail to see her do better. So now that she's top 10 and career high as of October last year was number 4 in the world. So she's already So she's already reached top 5 potential. Now she needs the game to maintain that top 10 ability as a seed at a tournament, to make semifinals, to make finals, because she already made the finals of a Grand Slam. We saw her do it at the French. We saw her do that, which was fantastic. But you saw the inexperience as a player against someone like Swiatek, who's personally dominating the women's game right now. So you see that, and you know she has the potential to do it as a top 10 seed.
Yeah. Oh, man, you're right. And just she's got a good team behind her. And, everyone likes to talk about the technical issues with the serve and the forehand. But, that'll sort itself out.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I like where she's at.
Yeah.
How about her doubles partner, Jessica Pegula? I mean, she was coming in this tournament in a lot of people's minds, Phil, the favorite.
After Swiatek lost, that's where I think all the attention turned to.
Yeah. Because she beat her in the United Cup. Exactly. Because Pegula knocked her out in the United Cup.
Well, let me put it to you this way. In the fourth round, Swiatek lost to Rybakina. Ostapenko beat Goff. Pegula beat Krejcikova. Azarenka was her next opponent against Pegula. Karolina Pliskova somehow made another quarterfinal. Yeah. She was playing Magda Linette.
Yep.
And Magda Linette beat Caroline Garcia, who is another player who just won the WTA finals. Sabalenka beat Bencic, and Vekic, who for the longest time didn't see her on tour, but somehow made it here, played another rising star, Linda Fruhvirtova from the Czech Republic. Part of my pronunciation, but I'm
easy for you to say. I wouldn't have had a chance. Thank you.
I'm not even gonna try.
Thank God. I was getting nervous there, but I had forgotten. Yeah,
trying to pronounce it out loud now. But go ahead.
No, I love how you're setting the table here. A lot of these names, Bencic, Vecic, they kind of rhyme. And Vecic, she was a promising junior 10 years ago. Thank God she's still on top of the, she's back in. She didn't go away for that long. Bencic, I love her competitiveness. She's won a gold medal. I want her to do more. But I like how you said
we all do.
Yeah, thank you. And bringing in those players that had been around in the earlier part of the last decade, they're still now kind of filtering back. Was it Pliskova you mentioned?
Pliskova
thank you.
Was number one player in the world.
Yeah, U.S. Open finalist.
She was U.S. Open finalist. Wimbledon. No, not Wimbledon. Was she Wimbledon finalist?
I think she lost the Open final to Kerber, but don't trust me.
I think you're right with that because and I will always say this too. For those of you that have watched the channel, I've never, and no hate to Karolina, but as a world number one, she's another world number one that we've seen not win a major title.
Oh, don't take me back to the days of
Jelena Jankovic.
Yankovic. I mean, those were some tough years.
But that's what I mean, though. That when she became and I think as a player, you cannot be number one in the world if you haven't won a major. That's just my mindset. That's just my mindset. I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand.
Well, you understand because you understand what you explained earlier. Understanding how much money you make at a certain level of certain tournaments,
which is true.
And how points means something. Davenport would finish the year number one. She had won majors previously, but in 2004, she had not won a major. She was the year number one. It happens. We see it more with the women. Don't know why. That's a whole nother topic. But it's like democracy. I mean, a lot of people would argue it's the best system out there. This point system, it's the best system out there, but you still get years when a player will finish number one without winning a major.
Yeah.
And I feel for you. It's confusing.
It's annoying. I have to use the word annoying because
it's frustrating.
Because those are players outside of their country. No one will know.
Yeah.
No.
I know.
If you ask any casual tennis fan, if you go to the U.S. Open, and I always use the U.S. Open as an example because that's the time of year with every American, every person in a country club that plays tennis goes to the U.S. Open to watch high-level tennis.
Sure.
If you ask any fan to go watch the number one player playing that day, they have, and I'm sorry, they have no clue. tell me one person at the U.S. Open could tell me who, if they could pick out Karolina Pliskova in a lineup of tennis players. You can't.
To quote Brad Gilbert, they couldn't pick her out of a one-woman lineup.
Ooh, I haven't heard that before.
I mean, I'm stealing from BG, but yeah, they could.
But no, it's a interesting take. I like that.
Yeah, and Serena, that's a widely recognizable person who wasn't always number one, but racked up 23 majors. So I don't know why. It seems with the WTA tour, you see it more often. Your point is more prevalent there with their tour. Don't know why. That's another podcast. I have some great news and bad news. The good news is this is awesome. I would like to have a part 2 with you.
Yes, absolutely.
The problem is that I'm getting low on the battery. Not my personal. I don't have a pacemaker, but this battery.
Okay, just making sure.
You're charging me up, but we're running out of time.
That's okay.
Fortunately, we covered more of the men in the Americas, and we didn't get to Felix. Quickly, let's talk. Well, we didn't get to Gula. We didn't get to a lot of the players that I had in mind, but I'm completely guilty for not.
That's okay.
Keeping to the script.
If you want me to chat about that in under a minute, I can right now.
Yeah.
If not,
the
let me know.
floor is yours.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Jessica Pegula, probably one of the nicest people on court, one of the most genuine people on court. The fact that she had a beer during her post-match press conference at the U.S. Open last year was one of the most iconic photos we have ever seen in tennis in terms of being genuine. The fact
that she was thirsty.
Well, we'll go with that. But the fact that she has made a name for herself outside of her parents who own the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres says a lot. And it says just because she had resources doesn't mean she took advantage of them, because she's made a name for herself and is making hand over fist because of her pure talent. And as a former hitting partner of hers, she is really nice. Her coach, David
Witt, right?
One of the nicest guys as a coach and as a human being there is. Love the guy, love her. I think she's one of the Americans that people should know and love moving forward. Felix Auger-Aliassime, and before I want to get this in,
please do.
Felix, the Netflix curse is real.
Yeah.
That thing was insane. Felix, I thought, even though he lost to an up-and-coming, the ATP Next Gen finalist, Lehechka,
another tough one to pronounce, yeah.
Yes, thank goodness I work with a Czech person who corrects me every time I mispronounce someone's name.
Is that your girlfriend or?
No.
Okay.
Brad, wrong time to bring that in.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm good at inserting the foot into the mouth.
No, that's okay.
But
no, you're fine. I just wanted to make that clear. Girlfriend is someone else.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Gosh, I
no, that's okay.
I'm not gonna say anything until we're done.
No, you're fine. I think for the men, Felix, really good results. Really good to see him making consistent plays and making consistent shots while he's being aggressive. I thought it was his to lose to get to the semifinals, especially after the draw opened wide up. If he beat Lehechka, in my opinion, I think he would have had an easier route getting to, and I'm trying to find that draw again where he made, because he did make the quarterfinals. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think fourth round is where he lost. I think he lost in the fourth round. And then I think he would have played.
He lost. You're right. He would have played Tsitsipas, and I think
that's
he would.
Tough assignment.
But it still would have made a bigger difference of him making a quarterfinal of a Grand Slam.
No, you know what? He could have beat Stefanos. You're right. He could have.
Well, Lehechka, even though Tsitsipas made the final, Lehechka pushed the guy. 6-3, 7-6, 6-4 is not a tough victory, especially for a straight sets victory in a 3-set match. Felix could have pushed that even to 4 or 5. So Felix actually,
no, you're right.
If you think about it, Felix could have had a decent chance of making a semifinal of a Grand Slam.
And he had a match point last year here against Medvedev.
Exactly.
He's no stranger to playing some good ball here. You're right. Thank you for reminding me to get back to FAA, because you're right. He, loses that 4th round match. Okay, yeah, Netflix curse, as you said. Okay, fine, sure, but the path to the final was there for him.
Yeah,
the
I
path
think
to
so.
the final was there for FAA for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think anyone's was going to beat Novak, as everyone's talked about. He only lost 1 set, and that's everyone's favorite stat about him and all the other ones. Boy, this is great. I want to do this again.
Please,
because we
would love to.
I think there's just so many levels of your experience with these players in the Americas, because you've seen them on the challenger level, the collegiate level, on the ATP, WTA, and ITF tours. Your wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Phil.
No worries. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate you guys just hosting me. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I love talking tennis. I love talking about this kind of stuff. It's always a pleasure, and it's just a passion. I mean, this is what gets me excited when I wake up, not just teaching, but talking about it as well. When someone knows what they're talking about, and just even a little bit of knowledge, I love it. So thank you again, Brad.
We're having a nice game of we're playing like an EXO, like hit and giggle tennis is what we're doing.
Hit and giggle tennis,
right? Like that's what our exchange.
Love that.
What you brought to the podcast today, to me, I loved, was that that experience you've had on the challengers and with the collegiate folks, and you're a hitting partner you've done that on both tours. That's folks. That's a tough gig. That is a tough gig, and I can't imagine how nerve-wracking that must be. I mean, is that more nerve-wracking than playing in a tournament?
Yes and no, for different reasons. Yes, because I don't want to miss, so I hit more tentatively. I don't swing.
Mm-hmm.
No, because there's no pressure to beat them.
Exactly. But there's pressure. It's different kinds of pressure. Because they can, on the wrong day, they can have a pretty short fuse, like you net one ball, or you even hit a net court, they can get a little crabby. They, on the wrong day, that assignment, I don't envy you guys. On the right day, it's beautiful.
It's
you're
funny.
Sharing, you're having bananas, like you're doing the banana bump,
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I think when I interacted with Rublev and we sat on the bench together, it was so weird sitting next to a guy that I've watched play and is still younger than me.
Yes. Oh, I know how that feels. Believe me.
But because I'm not, and I apologize if I'm not looking at you directly, because this is my thought process behind it, is to sit next to a guy that can smack the ever-living daylights out of a ball, and you're somehow keeping up with him. For me, that was probably his first or second hit of the tournament. But the fact that I'm even hitting with him and I'm keeping up somewhat, and hearing that boy on the other side of the net I was like, okay, maybe I have talent to be a hitting partner, but not as a competitive tennis player.
I could think of worse. Yeah, I could think of worse.
It's a nice realization, to be honest.
Well, no, but it's a great gig, because you are everything in the tennis. So it's a really good gig for you, because you can share this story, what it's like sitting next to him during probably a good session, And but moreover, when I want the viewers to my feeling is they trust you, and that, my man, is that's the key. If a player, they don't hit with somebody they don't trust. Therefore, you can share I looked up to him, but you're not gonna. There's certain things it wouldn't be professional. There's so much of that banter is off the record.
Oh, and when I talk to, and I'm gonna say that I think this is gonna be the first time I'm saying this too, is when I talk to a player, I try to be as casual as I can be, and I be professional when I hit, and I try to be professional when I interview. When I'm just trying to help someone, that's the way I see it. I don't want them to think of my channel. I don't want them to think of what I talk about online. I want them to see me for me. And I think
Sure.
that's what I try to do with my own YouTube videos, because I like
Sure.
talking about it. And personally, when people disagree with me, that's fine, because I like talking about the other side of two different stories, so I can see both ends.
Well, look, all I'm hearing, Phil, is the professionalism. You put on a different hat when you're a journalist than you do as a hitting partner. Totally different. You can't and they know those worlds can't collide.
No, absolutely.
Because if they think you're a journalist when you're doing the hitting session, you're screwed. You're not.
Yeah.
You can share what it's like to kind of be around the guy, but you can't reveal. That's off the record stuff. Like, you guys had private conversations that you don't share. Yeah. But saying and conveying the experience with us, that's cool. That's saying, hey, this is what it's like. It's real. It's nice.
And I appreciate that, because I want to clarify one thing that you said when you said, and I don't want to ruin your battery altogether, so I'll try to make this quick. For me, I like to say content creator, and it's kind of a cliche word too, but when I hear journalist, I don't think of making YouTube videos. I don't think of creating different types of interviews. I don't think of doing a Djokovic game with ATP professionals. I don't hitting videos with doubles professionals that teach me how to volley like a tennis pro, how to play the way they do, how to get into the mindset of them, playing a game with them, and getting them out of their comfort zone. I just doing a video where Ulysses Blanche was on Wired YouTube channel for how fast his serve goes, and I tried to return his serve, and I almost died. Yeah, because it just came right out my face.
So, but you're compartmentalizing stuff. This content, I kind of stumbled on the word.
That's fine,
and that's fair. And that's the deal. You get to wear these multiple hats, but you don't necessarily, to quote from Seinfeld, you don't want the worlds to collide.
Yeah.
You don't want them to collide, but the worlds can, sometimes have an intersection.
Coexist. I like to say coexist, because that way it doesn't overlap. Yeah. But you have to respect, I can do both. Like, you can do two things without one interfering with the other. And and sometimes I feel like people don't see that, because they see YouTube and they see my interviews and they think journalist, they think media, and they think of people that do it the wrong way. So they're trying to protect people. So you see where I'm getting at, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
So I want to show people that I can keep that separate.
No. And I think it's important, as long as, the word that, as long as you're transparent and people know that, like, look, guys, when I'm doing something instructional, I have my instructional hat. Yeah. If I have one of the guys on my podcast, whomever it may be, and you're doing what we're doing, that's different. Yeah. When you're playing, you were playing with Gil Gross, like, that was awesome. I think that was kind of like the worlds collided, because he's probably a buddy of yours, and he's in your professional world, and he's a really good tennis player, and so that would be like instructional, or just like really cool. We got to go behind the curtain with two podcast guys, web guys. So that one actually was awesome. It covered all of the spectrum. It was awesome. I watched it felt like more than a set, but you were holding serve so quickly, but I don't want to break down that match. But you're right. And I think this is nice that you're able to, in the modern era, this is what guys do now, and what women do. It's not just media. You might write a few articles, you do podcasts, you do the tennis.
I like to throw myself in there with experiences, and I feel like if people can see your experience or an experience that they want to do through you, I think that's great. Like, and I'll give one more example is when I got Grant Chen, when he allowed me, great guy, wonderful dude, head coach of SMU.
I met him at UCLA. I don't know what he was doing then, but great dude.
He was
with Stella Sampras, right? Wasn't he like?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, I ruined your flow.
No. It's fine. Wait, he was a club player for UCLA. And
well, whatever he was involved with Pete or Stella. And
I think he was involved with Stella.
Yeah, one of the nicest dudes and no ego, great cat.
And he just wants to help people promote the sport of tennis. And
he's not a hater.
And when he invited me down and he allowed me to go through their facilities, and I actually got to play a fast 4 set with one of his players. Like that's the kind of content I want to create. And that's the kind of community we want to build in tennis, not just for my YouTube channel, not just for your YouTube channel and podcast. It's for everyone, because we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to get that next generation of tennis fans excited and inspired.
It's so true. Like, the cliche would be, growing the game, but it's confusing. Some people, this is kind of a trip I found out. I would ask a lot of people that were club players, and I'd observe them and I'd be like, they don't seem that into the pro game. And then I came up with this weird conclusion that to a lot of 3-5 club players, their favorite player is themselves. Why not? Because they're in it. Like they may not love the pro game. That might not interest them. So they need to be like their favorite players themselves. They want to be the Djokovic of their club, or the Federer, or the Venus or Serena of their club. They don't need to love the pro game. They really don't. I know, it's kind of wild. And then I would meet fans at tournaments, and I was under the assumption that everyone that was watching tennis was a tennis player. And I'd meet these fans, Phil, that never had hit a tennis ball in their life, didn't want to. So it's wild. Like, you're serving all like masters or all people, servants, whatever. You're serving the whole tennis universe.
Yeah.
Some of us just want to be tennis fans.
Yeah.
Some of us want to just play, and then there's a mix. And
that's fine.
It's a trip. I just assumed that everyone that played tennis was like us, that wanted to be a professional player when they were a kid. Not true.
It's funny, and I have to stop using the word funny because I use it way too much.
I love the word hilarious. You can
hilarious. But I find that fascinating that you said that, because of the way it's not former tennis players. It's not people that envision themselves to be playing on the pro tour at some point. I envision that, but that's not the case for some other people. Maybe they just like watching it. And the way to get people involved with this sport is not changing the format. It's not changing the rules. It's about how can we popularize the sport in the new wave media today, and how can we make it enjoyable? How can we make it fun and entertaining for people that are watching it on TV, instead of seeing all these empty stadiums that you're seeing on Tennis Channel, which is the only broadcasting network for it. And I'm not going to get into that.
It's funny. I was going to say, before the TV thing, so the tournament here this summer in Los Cabos 250.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Medvedev won, the first tournament. He won this last year.
Yeah.
And he crushed Nori in, last set. He beat him 6-love. It was painful. Didn't even look like Nori. I think it was 7-6 and 6-love. Disgusting tennis in the last set. But the thing is, I brought a non-tennis player there. She loved it. The vibe. It was Kokonakis playing Fernando Verdasco.
Oh, that's a fun one.
It was fun as hell. It was like a second round match, and it was epic. It went 3 sets. We were eating, like cool food. There was music. The vibe of being at a small tournament.
Yeah,
that's better than TV, bro.
Yeah.
It just so happened. I'm like, oh, honey, I was rooting for a 3-setter. Yeah. I was rooting that it wouldn't stop, because we were just halfway through our first course. Like we hadn't got to dessert yet because you can go to the vendors and blah, blah,
I
blah.
love that.
That great date, by the way, for any of you people out there. You want a first date, take them to a tennis tournament. Outdoors.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't recommend the indoor thing. It depends. I suppose Master Series, blah, blah, blah.
Depends who you ask and where you are.
But the thing is, it was awesome. I don't even know if the tennis was that good. But we talked about their outfits. You know, she thought one guy was good looking, whatever. Like, we didn't really even talk about the in between the lines. Didn't matter. It's a great vibe. Fun. She's never hit a tennis ball. I don't know if I ever will again. But I'll always go to a tennis tournament, a challenger, college, whatever. Down the street, two guys like, you know, that are in their 80s playing. It's cool. It's all cool. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
All right, my man. It's 100%. Great. This is great. What a
love this, Brad.
Time. So your website, you have a YouTube channel, right? That's something they might want to check out?
Yes, absolutely. You can check us out at Tweener Head Tennis, youtube.com/Tweener Head, Instagram, Tweener Head Tennis, Twitter, Tweener Head. Website, we have a lot of photos that we upload from our travels. That's tweenerheadtennis.com. We have everything. But
so basically, they go to tweenerheadtennis.com. They're going to find what they're looking for.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going to get fired if I don't tell them what they should be looking for on this channel. This has been
go ahead.
Another production of the Wild West Tennis. I can't even say it. Wild West Tennis Podcast. I'm thinking Tweener. Wild West
Tennis
Podcast brought to you by QualityShot Tennis. I'm Brad Falkner. Please. Oh, and thank you, Phil. I'm going to butcher your last name. So can you help me with that?
Fama. Fama.
Okay. See, it's not that tough, folks.
It's like llama.
Please like, subscribe, comment, check us both out. But yeah, no, QualityShot Tennis. We'll take you on, dude.
Please.
It's a brawl. It's on.
Do it.
Okay. Hey, thanks, buddy.
No worries. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it.
All right. Likewise. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.